Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hashtag Enough Place to End Gun Violence panel presented by ATCteen. I'm Oscar Anderson. I am the Community Project Coordinator here at ATCteen on the Council.
I'm Faith Santos, and I play College Friend in our play Malcolm. Hashtag Enough Plays to End Gun Violence is this national movement bringing together youth to advocate against gun violence via playwriting. And in fact, these students have competed, in which 7 plays have won, and ATC was granted the opportunity to perform one of them, which is Malcolm.
I told him not to leave Atlanta. But he had to leave. He said he had something to tell his sister.
He texted me telling me that he had something important to say. And he kept saying sorry. Sorry, 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 he said. I should have told you earlier, but I didn't.
We wanted to hold this panel today to further discuss some of the issues presented in Malcolm, a 10-minute play. So we've brought in 4 wonderful panelists, 2 of which have worked on Malcolm, and 2 of which are other involved members of our community. Welcome, everyone. So if everyone wants to just introduce themselves, names, pronouns, and how you're involved in the community.
So, hi, I'm Odales Catalan or Destruction, depending how you know me. I use she, they pronouns. I am not with any specific organization, but around Tucson, I do help organize. I'm also sometimes an action medic at protests, and I do different outreach and sometimes work with like music organizations around here that offer free lessons for kids. But really, I don't belong to one organization. I'm just sitting here and having a good time. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, y'all. My name is Paula Ortega. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. Ella is a female pronoun in Spanish. And yeah, I represent Reframe Youth Arts Center, but I'm also working for different 2 other organizations called Rising Youth Theater and Creative Youth Development. And the ways that my activism shows up in my community is with the arts. I believe the arts are a way that you can take up space and humanize data. So yeah.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Lauren. I am in Malcolm. I play driver. This is my first project with ATC, but I'm having a really good time. I don't represent any organization. I'm just here as me. And yeah, it's great to be here.
Hi, I am Valeria Rios. I am known as Leander within ATC Teens. I am one of the sound designers for the production of Malcolm. I, when it comes to activism or community service work, I am with the Southern Arizona Veterans Healthcare Systems Student Volunteer Program known as SERVE. And I'm also part of Law Enforcement Explorers, which is a program run through Boy Scouts.
Great. So, these are our 4 lovely panelists, and all of them have either watched or read our play of Malcolm. And just to start off, what is your guys' like initial response to either reading or watching the play?
I thought it was really beautiful the way that different art forms came together. I really like how the lights created different emotions from the play. It kind of reminded me of police sirens. I don't know if that's something that y'all were going for, but like it definitely like added to that. And then like the storytelling in the interview, the way that y'all did the interviews or responding to the interviews, it was like it like brought me like I don't know, I felt that. And same with like the music at the end. I was just like like the music was just kind of like the cherry on top after like the interviews and like explaining the story of like how everything went down. And I really also enjoy the visual arts because it allowed not just like from the storytelling point, but also the way that the visual arts showed up in that space, and like you were able to like not just imagine it but also see it. So I thought that was like really cool.
I really liked the way it like I so I felt like a lot of the dialogue was almost written like just like a really long like freeform poem, which I thought was really really interesting. It wasn't like Shakespearean, and it wasn't just like normal like dialogue. I think it was like something very in between. And then just the way that something so intimate could be created when like nobody was near each other, and just doing this over Zoom, which I thought was really 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 amazing. And also it's just like I'm admittedly I'm not an emotional person. I don't like cry during movies or anything, but like it did make me like tear up at the end and stuff. And I think it's just a very very powerful thing, and I think it just proves how much art can really like get inside your brain and really make you think and feel things. So I think that was amazing, especially all the work that the crew did from a distance.
Yeah, being in the show, it definitely was a unique experience because, I read it on my own, and then I read it with a cast, and then we started to piece it together, and all of those steps are just so different from the final outcome that most people will end up seeing. But it really took me back because, first off, I've never been like involved in theater that's been, not together on a stage, or just like filmed together. It was very different from what I was used to, especially setting up my props and setting up my lights and getting my costume. It was all like very different for me. But what I thought was really cool about it was, well, this isn't something that you see when you hear on the news about somebody dying, like somebody being shot, or somebody being killed by like a cop or something. You don't see the interviews done by like detectives or people like that. And so to have this sort of thing, especially done by teenagers who are hardly involved in that sort of stuff, especially not to this extent, it was a really cool thing to see. And I think it's something that a lot more people need to see, because when you hear about somebody dying on the news, you're like, oh, that's really sad. And like maybe it motivates you to be like, this is a movement and this is something we need to keep talking about. But not many people think about, this is like, the taxi driver that got affected by this death. And like, yeah, it's a very beautiful thing. And it really struck me in that way, that it was just awesome.
Yeah, I feel like something in the play that I quite liked upon initially reading it. I wasn't involved in the production, but I was allowed to read it as they were working on it, is how it kind of leaves open at the end, like they continue the conversation. This is a 10-minute play, and the play almost ends in an unfinished manner, prompting you to, go and think about it. And it's an inherently political piece, and I kind of just wanted to pose a question. What do all of you feel about art in relation to politics and activism?
I think art is inherently political, because when you are an artist, you are essentially projecting your ideas out into the world, because you are I mean, obviously you're directly influencing what exactly you're saying. So like, even if you aren't thinking like, I want to make this about this thing, like it's still there. And because you are projecting your views, it is also going to be interpreted by an audience, and either they can agree with you or they can disagree with you, and they can use it to fit their own like political agendas and ideas, or it can make them think about like another side, or find that middle ground, which it's important. And I think artists also have that responsibility, because art is such an emotional platform, like no matter what kind of art you are creating, to bring forward these like political ideas.
That's really true that art and political opinions or activism are linked. Um, Outside ATC, I am a writer. For me, my platform when it comes to that is a platform called Wattpad. Even though there is, even though my writing there is mainly fan fictions based off of like Lego properties or Star Wars or Marvel, um, since I'm trying to get into activism for LGBT subsequently and without thinking, more than one of my characters spanning several um, stories are part of the community as either queer or bi or whatever. Um, so for me, that's how my activism shows up.
I think it's really beautiful the way that you talked about how the arts and uh, politics are like linked together, like what you both have shared. I think it's really cool how the arts get to humanize like this mass amount of data, because there's so much data out there, and to prove everyone's point or things like that. But the way that the arts humanize that data or present it out in the world, I think it's really beautiful. And like it could be in different art forms, which I think it's really cool. Writing, spoken word, murals. Like there's a lot of murals out there that like show some storytelling or some history, that I think it's like super cool. And same with like theater. That's why I love Theater of the Oppressed, because you get to storytell, you get to like really humanize this big systemic problem into real stories, to like think real things that are really happening out there in the community, because there's this big issue, but then there's more than this, just this big issue. There's the things under that big issue that are happening every day. And I think the arts do that in a beautiful way. And then they also allow people to explore conversation. I think the arts spark conversation in a way that it's often hard to explore when you are like looking at a data. And yeah, I do believe that the arts and politics they have a connection,
Mhm.
and that the arts play a big role in the movement as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that, I totally think that, yeah, arts are totally political, but in the same way, I think that politics are really artistic when it comes down to it. There's influence, and if we're being honest, a lot of it is performative. And, you can learn it, you can teach it. It's art, art is anything you can put out in the world and get people to agree with. And just because it's put into a different form, like in this instance, a little 10-minute play, it doesn't make it any less political. And that doesn't make, like a debate or some sort of promotion for a candidate for something, that doesn't make that any less artistic, which I think is really cool.
I love these responses. And I think as being involved in different art forms and whatnot, I think the bottom line is it's a way of communication. We're doing transformative storytelling. And with projects like this, we're able to speak and be vessels for other people. And the question I have for everybody here is, whose voices do you guys think is most amplified through Malcolm?
Malcolm's sister, his bandmate, and his college friend. They're the ones who knew Malcolm for a long time, who are personally affected by Malcolm. While the driver knew Malcolm for a short amount of time, their voice within the context of within the story is affected by him because they were the last person to see Malcolm alive at the time. But it's his family, his friends that are the ones that are trying to say he was our brother, regardless of skin tone, skin color, race, ethnicity, religion, political views. And he was unjustly taken from us for no reason by a person that we thought and that would protect us, who vowed to protect us.
Going into the play itself, I feel something that almost is a powerful way of presentation is that Malcolm is not a speaking character. Malcolm isn't telling you the story. He's an absence that causes it almost. I feel like that speaks to just the play in general.
Right. I think, yeah, I agree. I think there's something really powerful about Malcolm not being a speaking character, or like being able to tell their story, right, of what really happened and what really they were thinking in that moment, or what they really experienced, because we're sadly not going to be able to hear that. And that's what really sucks. And that hurts, to know that we will never be able to hear from Malcolm, and we will never really get to hear his real experience. And that is what's currently happening every day out there. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement is really big right now, because police brutality is real, especially in Arizona. Phoenix was one of the ones that, and here in Phoenix police was one of the ones that shot more people than any other place in the United States. And to that, like, that sucks. We are never going to get those people back that were killed by police, and we're never going to really hear their stories and like what they experienced. And the voices that I heard on display were those who were impacted about from what really from what happened to Malcolm. Those people around, the people that loved him, his friends, his community members, they were impacted. And I'm really interested to hear what the young people also have to say about, like, if like there were other young people in his life, or who knew about this story from the play, like what would they say, right? What would they do? um but yeah.
I, I do also find that interesting that Malcolm isn't a speaking role in there, because I don't know if you guys saw, but like Times is like working on their Person of the Year awards, and one of the news outlets had a photo of George Floyd and then the title Social Justice Movement on it, which is very strange, because George Floyd and these people who are killed by police or are victims of gun violence, they don't choose to be the face of these movements. They don't like, a person shouldn't have to die to put a face onto a movement. And and it's just very strange. And it just shows too that people will choose somebody, like usually like media outlets or performative activists, and they will choose somebody to basically be like, look at this person, this bad thing happened, look at them, and then just never, and then that removes the idea that they have to address a much bigger problem than just this single person. And it also, so I just also thought that was very, very interesting.
It reminds me of this, I don't remember where I saw it, but you become famous when you're dead, or people start to say really good things about you when you're dead. So like, why does it have to, for people to really take action after someone has been dead, right? Like we're just waiting for people to die, and then we're really gonna take action. Like that just, like, it just sucks, no? Like, to know that that's the way that we have to make people listen to what we have to say, or really show people what is really happening out there every day. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that it's taken the Black Lives Matter movement, and it will take a lot more to get across the fact that, you know, just people dying is not something that we like should chant about and then not do anything about. This is the time when we start supporting, like Black creators and Black businesses, and trying to like get rid of the stigma that, first of all, is embedded deeply, deeply into our police systems, and just in society as a whole, that like, people of color are like dangerous or less American. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous that people like just have this subconscious, like, I don't know, they have this idea, and it's like, now is the time that we actually start doing things. Now is the time to protect Black people while they're alive, and abolish things like redlining and just like all these things that lead to this. Like, we need to take a few steps back and say, why is that happening?
Yeah, another thing that um it has taken like something bad happening for people to do stuff about it. A couple years ago, for the Parkland shooting, at that point, um, we're still like in the middle of Trump's presidency at that point. Like a year and a half, maybe 2 years in, and there was already like several like mass shootings already within his presidency, and it's taken a shooting at a high school to make national news. It's like, hey, somebody shot up a school again. But what made Parkland way more impactful than being another school shooting is that the survivors, the victims, all students, practically said we had enough. If the adults aren't going to do anything about it, it's time for us to say we had enough, which resulted in almost all students across the country to walk out of their classrooms and say we had enough as well. Um, for years since this country has been a nation, youth have always been the voices of revolution. From the revolution to civil rights, um, to Stonewall, Black Lives Matter, the aftermath of Parkland. It is teenagers, youth that continuously say, we have our voices. It's taken us to die to say, for you guys to notice that we matter. And that's what Malcolm pretty much almost encapsulates along with the other plays. Because all these plays are youth produced and youth run.
Yeah, I feel like just going to kind of hit on something we brought up earlier. I feel like something that you can see around both police brutality and gun violence in general is when people make a hero or a martyr out of the person and not the hole they left. Because I feel like that after someone dies, it's as weird as it is to say this, it does more to focus on what they could have done than on what they left behind than what they are, because as horrible as it is, that person is dead. Paula, you hit on something before. You were talking about just how this affects Arizona in particular.
Yeah, in Arizona, the Department of Public Safety, they're training, because the reason why I know like some of these things is because I took this training of like how police really work in the community. And something that I found out is the Department of Public Safety, their training is military training, which is often military training is often training to kill. It's not training to like stop something. It's to kill. And that's what's happening in Arizona. If the Department of Public Safety has this training, same as Phoenix Police, there's so many like organizations right now like Poder in Action, Mass Liberation, who are trying to be in this community council so they can be the ones who review the cases of like the mess that Phoenix Police is doing, and like the way that they're using their power. um, you know Often as BIPOC communities, like Black, Indigenous, people of color, we have to have this specific routine, right? When, or like pass down knowledge from our parents and our ancestors and our community members of how to act when we get when we get stopped by police. And to know that you have to go through this routine, it sucks. For example, like when I get if I am like when I got pulled over, like it's scary. It's really scary because I'm brown, and you just have I had to put my hands on the dashboard, and I cannot move. And every little move that I make, I have to let them know what I'm going to get. And that was because that was knowledge that was passed down by my community and my family members. Don't open the door when someone knocks because it could be eyes. This knowledge that has been passed down in BIPOC communities because of police brutality. And those are things that affect us every day. Yeah, like I live in on the west side of Phoenix, and there's always police officers outside of my home, right? And like every day I see police officers, not every day, but I've experienced seeing, police officers arrest people in a way that like should not have been arrested. Why are you dragging them out like that? My homie, like my friend, his sister just got arrested, and they pulled her by the shoulder in like such an aggressive manner. Like, why do you have to do that? You haven't even told her what she's being arrested for. Like things like that are like the things that are happening every day in Arizona and in other places with police, because they're being trained that way.
I always find the term police brutality interesting because I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as police brutality, because even though a cop might not be like actively being aggressive towards a person, they're still upholding a system that brutalizes people, that is built on white supremacy. So really, like, police brutality is just a day-to-day behavior. And usually when people say like police brutality, it's because they see a video of like on CNN of a cop doing something terrible to a person, killing somebody. But it's like these are just normal behaviors that are often covered up by the departments, by the police unions. But really, police brutality is just being a cop. Like you're in part of the system that is upholding white supremacy and classism and racism and gun violence. Like it's all tied together. Gun violence is like inherently, like police brutality and gun violence and racial profiling are all basically the same, because it all works together and affects communities in the similar ways. Which, sorry, I'm like rambling a little bit and going on to my own topics now, but
please continue. And
with police upholding a white supremacist system, it's going to make gun violence in schools, in communities, even worse. Because when you are basically where we are in a system that is built only on crime and punishment, and is also projected forward with capitalism, it's going to make POC more likely to be in low income areas. And where there's low income areas, there's most likely more violence, because usually you have to get into these survival tactics so you can live for yourself. And then where you start bringing in gun violence, then you're going to have more police activity, which also again upholds the idea that your race makes you more of a criminal. And also, when they're focusing on these areas that are mainly by POC, it is going to put more of them in jail, which is also modern day slavery that is masked by capitalism and making those quotas, especially with privatized prison systems.
I hear you. And I think we've all have heard at least once already that, the saying where there's nothing wrong with the system's not going wrong, it's just been wrong. It's working exactly how they mapped it out. And, from my experience, I didn't grow up in Arizona, but I grew up in the southwest coast of, California. And I've experienced it. It was all I grew up in, low income area, filled with, people of color. And, it just happens to fall that way. And I love how passionate you guys are. And just upon that, was there like an awakening to your activism and art?
I kind of so I make music. I've been playing in bands since I was like 15, and I've been kind of like involved with the punk scene in and out for most of like my teenagehood, going through my like my Hot Topic punk phase and going to house shows and stuff. But you know, when I started writing music, I was really young, and it was like mainly when I started listening to things like Riot Girl from the 90s and like early 70s, 80s punk. And I knew I wanted that activism in there, but then like because I was so young and I wasn't so sure of how to do it, like admittedly a lot of it was like performative. Like I'd go on a stage and be like, women's rights, and then go home and just like not talk about it or not really do anything. But then I think my activism has definitely grown, because there's no such thing as a perfect activist. We all, like, you can't be like hyper like
Woke.
aware. Yeah, you can't be like aware of every single thing that's going on. There's no such thing as a perfect activist, and sometimes you say or do things that can be deemed as problematic, but that's where you learn and grow and understand how you can move forward and become a better activist. So I think, but then once I started, because I grew up in like my dad was in the military, most of my family, I have many dads. Most of my family were in the military, and then because my dad was in the military, he worked a lot with police and like SWAT and all that. He was also a safety trainer. So growing up and like seeing like these influence of, or like no, like kind of like being told like military good, cops good, maybe, and then growing up and then being like, I like seeing how so much of like my family has experienced things by the police is like, and gun violence is, I think, what really motivated me to become a better activist and to actually start doing things. And it wasn't like this like light bulb moment, this like eureka moment, but it was like kind of slowly going forward and understanding how to better myself as an activist.
With LGTB, I have a friend who's trans, who I have known from 6th grade straight through high school. So when it comes to that, that's been like a big part of my life and how I kind of shape that. I'm part of the community as well as being in aromantic. So that kind of shaped how I think of the world. Like OD, I grew up in a military family, so I have experience with that, and have experience with law enforcement training through my program that I'm part of. So I've seen the backstage, the behind the scenes type of thing of police. And for me, my activism has always been like sort of like a subtle thing over the years, and I'm trying to figure out how to have it in my life and more out there without getting criticized way too much by my family, and by people who have like almost like a surface level knowledge of the communities of that or the things or the issues that I am helping or I'm being an activist for.
I think that for me, the biggest realization that it took for me to finally be like, yeah, this is something that I'm really interested in, is realizing that, yes, like the military is, there's a lot to be said about the military. It's like one of the most like socialist things about our country, when people really misinterpret it a lot. But frankly, like when it comes down to it, the people who are risking their lives going against their own country, the people who make real change and risk their lives for the benefit of their country, are the protesters, are the people that speak out. And when you magnify that, you look in, and that's the youth. And when you think about it more and more, it's like the youth is affected just as much, if not more, than people who, are older. Because, well, first off, you can say a kid can get shot accidentally with a gun just as easily as an adult can. And like a kid can be affected for the rest of their lives because their parents brought them across the border illegally when they were just born. Or, a kid can like not afford school supplies because of a wage gap. Like, there's a lot of ways that children are affected in ways that we don't think about. And I think that it took me realizing that this is a youth issue, and it always has been and it always will be. That's something that really made me be like, yeah, this is for me, because I'm youth and I believe these things, and I've realized people don't believe these things, and I need to educate people because there is a lot of reason to believe these things. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like that strongly pertains just to relate it to gun violence in terms of, I mean, I do not think children should be allowed to use guns, and most kids do not use guns. And in terms of gun violence, I feel like one of the reasons we have such a major problem with it is because guns beget more guns. It is a tool to kill people, and it elevates the situation to something where someone could be killed without thinking. And I feel like one of the reasons a lot of these things affect, kids and teenagers more is because we don't have as much power, but we still face the same or similar consequences.
Right. I think going off of like about, because okay, I'm very much for like gun control. And mental health awareness and all of these things. And I'm a firm believer that you can be, I think, both. I don't really like to say pro gun, but I feel like you can be both pro gun and pro gun control, because it's like I was raised in like a military family, so like most of us like knew from a young age how to use a gun. Don't touch it, don't, and if you need to use it, because if there's an intruder, especially I think going into being a POC, is you need to protect yourself. And because it's like, in theory, I'm like, I feel like if we were able to take guns out of the equation all the way, I think life would be so much better. I think that take though of being like guns perpetrating that violence more is I think it's interesting, because I was also involved a lot with March for Our Lives when I was in high school. It's so weird saying I was in high school. I keep forgetting that I'm not in high school anymore. But I'm starting to ramble now, so I will pass it over to the next person who wants to add.
Well, it's good that you mentioned that. We actually talked about that as a cast, about gun control and whatnot. And I agree with you. But unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up pretty soon because time. But just to have it out there, for Paula, where can listeners find your work? And same as Odalis, where can listeners find your work and you?
Yeah, I am I always work for different organizations, and it's always been like Paula with this organization, Paula with this organization. So I just recently started exploring what it means to be an individual artist. So I have an Instagram page where folks can follow me. It's glitterlicious_xx. But I think it's great that if you could also follow, Rising Youth Theater. They are on Instagram and Facebook. Same as Creative Youth Development. We are on Instagram as CYD Movement. And Reframe Youth Art Center. We are on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a house on the south side of Phoenix where we are just like, it's a space for all art forms for young people to come together and have a space where they can just express themselves artistically and resist against the mistreatment of adults, and like in an activism way, and in any way that as young people we want to express. We also are building a community garden, so follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay updated on that, so y'all can come through once this pandemic is over. We can hopefully come all together and join, build community, perhaps have some like feast or something. uh But yeah, those are ways that folks can uh reach out to me.
You can find everything that I do at Eve of Destruction, so 2 E's in the destruction on Instagram. So, my music is on there, my art is on there, and basically one of the main parts of our social medias between the band and my personal is we do also try and uplift voices and kind of like spread more information about different protests that are going on and different organizations and community things. So be sure to look at that because we always post those things.
Love that. And we'll be sure to put those links in the description of this Facebook post and the YouTube video. We weren't able to cover everything. There is so much to cover when it comes to all of this. And we just wanted to start a conversation as we wanted to with Malcolm. And is there anything else anybody would like to add or say? Any ways that the listeners can get involved in helping the movement?
Just if you practice any art form, you're an artist. I don't care what other people say, you're an artist, and take a lot of space as you can with all the art that you do.
And if you want to get involved with your community, just go out there. There's a lot of different organizations that you can get involved with that are pretty accessible. If you're into food distribution for the homeless, you can also try places like Food Not Bombs and like different places like that. And especially them right now, because they're right now with the pandemic, a lot of houseless people are struggling to procure food and also masks and proper PPE right now. So I definitely look into that, but definitely just go out, do things in your community, even if sometimes if it's as much as picking up trash or, going somewhere where they distribute food, whatever, but it's all out there and all you just need is the drive to do it.
Just going off of what Paula said, there is so much space for art. Everyone make as much art as you can, and it was brought up before about wokeness and no one's a perfect activist. Make as much art and keep making it and keep getting better and changing.
This was so great. Thank you, everybody. Love to hear more from you guys. And just thank you. And don't forget, to anybody watching, as of right now, I believe Malcolm is still streaming on Broadway On Demand for free until the 20th of this month. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. And yeah.
You can also check out ATCteen's other production written by one of our students for #Enough. That's called The War Against Gun Violence. And it's streaming forever on ATC proper, on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Check it out. It's out now.
Check it out.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And thank you, everyone listening, for checking this out. I hope you'll enjoy everything that we've been putting out around this project.